Well, hello everyone, and I guess welcome back to my channel. Today we've got a subject that's kind of deep thinking. Hopefully, it's a little easier on the feels, a little less intense on the personal development front. I suppose there's going to be a little bit of that in here. So there's going to be a little bit of learning, a little bit of talking about the world at large. But today I want to talk about truth. Um, I love truth, and that's a very, very painful place to be in today's world. Truth is so hard to find. There's always trying to somebody tell us something. I mean, we've all been cruising through YouTube, and we've seen like there's all these pro tip shorts out there, right? Where you'll see somebody do something like fixing something, and they'll use a method that is absolutely garbage. Like, for example, for an easy example, there was one that Mythbusters actually did a long time ago, where the substance of the video was somebody took a tennis ball, they poked a hole in it, and then they claimed that by smashing that tennis ball onto like a car handle keyhole would cause the door to unlock. And it was all just editing magic. It was just somebody, they were using power locks and they timed it until they got the right shot with the thing doing it. There's no validity, there's no circumstances, there's no I suppose maybe if you had an extreme like throughput of air, you might get the lock to break or something, but you're not going to cause a lock to like rotate by injecting air into it. That's just not a thing. It's not possible, and yet we see it, and then our mind tells us it's true, right? Because we just watched it happen, right? We watched it. We saw the little thing pop up through the power locks of somebody probably using a remote, or they had the remote in their other hand or whatever. Uh, Something like that, right? Like, you're never going to know how these people do it, but they fake everything. And now we're getting into a world with AI where we can literally fake anything. I can go spend $100 and I can get 15 minutes and I can tell an engine to go create whatever video I want, and it'll draw it all out. It'll make it photo, video recording realistic if I wanted to. Now, there's problems. It might give things two left feet, like a video out there that you may or may not be familiar with. But there's uh, there's such a problem with truth today, and it's starting to become something that looks like a fundamental breakdown in something we depend on for society to work. And how do we deal with that? How do we recognize it? How do we deal with the emotions of when we find out we've been duped? How do we deal with the desire to dupe others? Bosses telling us we should tell people this when we're making sales calls that we know isn't true. How do we deal with being lied to all the time? Like, how do you live in a world now? I live in America where our highest court in the land have said police can just lie to people freely. So a cop can do pretty much whatever they want as far as telling me a lie. They can pull me over and just make up a whole bunch of reasons that they pulled me over. And if I say, yeah, I guess I was doing that one, no, now they got me, whether they saw me doing it or not. Just because they lied to me. It's like a fishing trap, you know? And how do we deal with that? Everything is so dishonest. Marketing is so dishonest. Hell, you probably need to find a way to find out if you think I'm dishonest. I could be one of these garbage creators just telling you what I think will sell instead of what I think is important. I hope I achieve credibility and relevance beyond that, but I would never encourage somebody to test on that, to rely on something that's unproven. I've been doing this a week. You shouldn't trust me. But we can talk about it anyway. Maybe you'll find some of my thoughts useful. Maybe you're advanced enough in these concepts, another perspective will help you. Maybe you haven't thought about it and this is just your intro and you'll go find somebody else to listen to. I don't know. But what I guess to start out, this is probably going to be a multi-part series. Again, I'm trying to limit videos to about 20 minutes, so I'm trying to keep track of that. I'm trying to understand what my times are and whatnot, and we'll see how we do there. I imagine this is going to be multiple parts. I have big plans to talk about a number of things, and I'm not really going to say what is true or not, even when I'm referencing world events or whatever, I'll say what I believe is true. I'll say maybe the methods or the thoughts that I have on why I do or don't believe things, but that doesn't make them true. That doesn't make anything true because most of the stuff I don't have access to enough evidence that I'd say that I have proof. So why would I assert that I know something that I don't know to be true? Because wouldn't I just be adding to the problem that I'm talking about? And so we have the challenges with truth today. Well, let's talk about where we see mistruths. Right, we talked a little bit like law enforcement can do it. Advertising, like there is so much funny business going on in advertising, and and sometimes it's subtle, and sometimes it's more obvious. Consider the smoking industry. They started doing research connecting smoking to cancer. I believe it was in the 50s, and we didn't really find out about this until like I think I was a teenager when all that was going on. So what, 90s? Like I it's unfathomable to me that it was within my lifetime that we said, oh yeah, now you can't market this product to children. We got rid of Joe Camel. I remember Joe Camel as a child. I know who that character is. Not a lot of people do, and it's a cartoon that Camel cigarettes used, and basically we banned marketing that looks like it's marketing to children. Now I'm not going to say and assign them intents to market to children, but we all know how marketing companies are. The brand loyalty is so strong. We know this from psychology. Brand loyalty is so strong. You lie to children all day long to get them to buy your product. That's how marketing works in this day and age. Because the younger you get somebody hooked on your brand, the more likely it is you've got a lifetime customer now. Now, with smoking, that's a little bit weird. You're killing your customers. I don't know. I guess that makes sense to them somehow. Uh, but we have to deal with these lies where they know something that they're keeping from us. That's a lie. That's you can't seek truth. I'm talking about truth. So we can hairpick. Did they lie to us by omitting truth? Well, we're talking about truth. So in our minds, that leaves us without the complete picture of truth, and that's what we're after, right? We want completeness of truth, with the whole truth, and that becomes really difficult because and then when we get the truth, do we listen to it? There's another component to this. Think of drug commercials where you get this. I noticed the ones for ulcerative colitis because it's a condition that I have. I was diagnosed at 17 years old. I have a form that's a little bit weird, but every time I see an ulcerative colitis drug, I'm curious as to what it is because it's a weird disease. It's incredibly difficult to manage. Like most autoimmune diseases can be incredibly difficult to manage. I've been fortunate enough that I have experimented enough. I eat a lot of good foods. I eat a lot too much, and I don't go outside enough, and so I get here. But the the problem becomes is like in a commercial where we're being advertised the drug say for ulcerative colitis. And now don't get me wrong, the disease it has its moments that are terrible, and there are times that yes, it gets bad enough that maybe I would do anything. I was on the short list for taking a very advanced drug, had all kinds of risks and problems, allergic reactions. It was terrifying. But so is the disease ulcerative colitis. I'm not going to get too specific because nobody wants to hear about the problems of ulcerative colitis. If you know somebody with ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, I'm sure you've heard about it. Way too much of our life gets devoted to the concept of human waste. It's really, really terrible. And so when I'm watching these commercials and they're talking about, the freedom to like leave the home with ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, it's because I have an anxiety over restroom security. Where I live, we have a very large homeless problem because it's so expensive to live here. And we have public parks that are often locked down, or people won't allow people to use restrooms in their facilities. There are a lot of gas stations you go into, they just won't let you use the restroom because people go in and destroy things. And so then people like me end up having this problem where I can't go out because I have this disease that I might need a bathroom at any minute, and urgency can be a very real problem. And then I'm being advertised to that I can go and I can get this injection a couple of times a month or something or whatever. But then, do you ever listen to the side effects? Oh yeah, it may cause things way worse than the disease. Like it literally, like some of the side effects are what the disease is sometimes. And then of course there's always the stroke and heart attack and death and all of this, and it's like, and a lot of times these drugs, like some of the best drugs that I know of for my condition are like in the 65 to 80% effective. They're not even that effective. It's a big old poke and hope. Here, try this drug. That didn't work. Next month we'll give you a different shot. And how are we supposed to, or medical research in general, this is a huge problem with, because what do you do when you have a financial incentive to research something, but finding out too much facts about it means you might have to disclose that, or you might have to tell somebody. And so you do your research in a way that tries to not look for problems, we'll go with, because that's, we both know that's common. We both know that's how businesses operate. Well, if we didn't ask that question in the research, it's not negligence, because, well, why would we ask that question? We're not required to ask that question. We're not required to look for those set of circumstances. We're not required to do this. And so why would they? Why would you spend money to find out information that might be against your product? And it's just not going to happen. And so we have all of this culminating. Sometimes they give you information that you don't need, because like there's like 5% of us in the world that has ulcerative colitis drugs. Why is it that half of the drugs I see advertised are for ulcerative colitis? I understand depression. Everybody in fucking America is depressed. Everybody in America has got anxiety or some kind of little micropsychotic thing going on in their head. And we live in a disturbed society where we have to question everything. We're anxious because we don't know what's true a lot of times. We're depressed because we're overwhelmed with the things, the insane amount of stuff we got to know, and the inability to trust resources. Now, I'm not saying that's the cause of all depression of anxiety. I'm just saying it's a contributing factor that matters a lot. How often do you hear somebody tell you that there's a new law coming into effect that you find out is bullshit, but you're anxious because your car has that feature, or you don't always like doing the things that the proposed law, like people just make up laws all the time, and I'm like, that's not happening. And so I got to deal with friends and family that believe things are happening, that they got it on the internet from somewhere, so somebody's feeding it to them. I don't think my friends and family are making stuff up, but there goes into fact checking. And so I guess what I'm getting at is this is becoming a huge problem. And I guess I'm looking to make a series to address this, to think about this, to look at the points where the truths are being manipulated in front of us, where truths are being hidden, where it almost seems like somebody is making an effort to try to make it hard to understand. And why would they do that? Why would anybody? Well, who's the gain? And that's going to be one of the things that we get into as we try to answer this truth, is trying to find out the truth usually has a pretty simple question. Like in any investigation, follow the money. That's how this world works, right? We follow the money, and we can start not necessarily having facts, but we can start deriving theories as to why we do or don't think something is true. What are some of the other challenges? What are some of the other things that contribute to problems in the modern world? Our fears, or I want to be careful on this one, because I don't want to say people are making stuff up, and even when they do, it's not always a conscious thing. There are weird conspiracy theories here that we hear about all the time. Like, for example, a few months ago, I was hearing stuff that in politics, people were saying that there is Haitians in I don't know, Ohio or something, that are eating people's pets. Now, we have a divide here, right? Because it sounds plausible, because anybody that's a student of world history and culture would actually look at the Haitian community, and they would actually acknowledge that they probably do eat some things that we in America might consider exclusively the domain of pets. And because they eat those, it sounds like there's a plausibility here. But does it make sense? Well, reports have shown that there's no evidence held by the police or the government in Ohio indicating that this is occurring. Nothing has changed in the statistics of things like missing pets. There's no problems with this. But on the other hand, this does happen. I come from a place in Illinois where there was a restaurant that the health department literally shut down, and the reason cited was using meat that didn't go through the United States Department of Agriculture meat inspection process. And that's not okay to do. You can't sell somebody food that hasn't been under the regulations that we produce food under. Now, I don't know what the truth is. See, now here's where we got to be careful. This was a Chinese restaurant. This restaurant was shut down with a public notice information as to why. And it was for using uninspected meat. Everybody in town always said it's because, well, that restaurant serves cat. And this is a long-standing, I don't know if it's I don't know what it is that drives it, but this is a long-standing thing. It goes back, there's an old song about, it's a parody of the song Cats in the Cradle. And the song is Cats in the Kettle. And it talks about going to a restaurant being served cat. It's a funny parody song. It's mostly really funny, clever wordplay. But if you're into that sort of thing, like if you're into Weird Al type song parodies, that's out there. I don't know that it was Weird Al that did. I don't know who did it. Who did the parody? I couldn't tell you who did the original song. But so here's the problem, right? We have a lie like that where there's truth in it, where we've been in a situation where there's truth in what's going on, but the assumptions made are still conclusory assumptions that don't have evidence backing them up. So is it true that Haitian people in their own culture eat animals that we might consider exclusively as pets and that we might be offended by them eating? Yes, that's real, I think. As far as I understand the Haitian culture, I've never been to Haiti. I don't know if I'm misspeaking. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm trying to show the complication of discerning truth, right? So, because Haitians in their home culture don't see the world as the way we do, is it reasonable to assume that they're doing it here? Well, consider this. When you go to other countries, do you follow the rules? Or do you just do what feels good in America? Because when I go to other countries, which I've never left the country, but I've gone to other states where the rules are different. Like, for example, I live in a state where marijuana is legal. Federally, it's illegal, and all states that legalize marijuana make it illegal to take weed across the border. So when I go to a different state, I cannot take any weed with me. And if they don't sell weed there, I don't have a legal means to get it, and possession would be illegal anyway, so I can't do that. So when I go to other states, I don't smoke weed. And it's really no more complicated than that. And I don't know why we would assume that just because Haitians in their own country do something that we might frown upon, where does that assumption come from that if they do it there, they must be doing it here? Because if I went somewhere else, I'd follow the local rules. I'd probably follow the local etiquette. I probably wouldn't be so concerned with laws. I'd probably try to be respectful based on the way the people there would be respectful. But you can see how there's a reasonableness that this leads somebody to believe that there is a community that is just stealing pets off the street and then consuming them as food. That becomes reasonable in this context because like any good lie or any good misinformation or even any good error in thought, you need that truth to underpin it. This is why, like, liars will tell you the best lies are ones that have the truth woven in, right? You want the truth in there. So when something seems partially true or just good enough that it could be, but the facts aren't always there, I get suspicious. That's what I do. That makes me suspicious. So Here we are. We are coming up on what I was trying to do for parts. I think we've laid out the problem. I think we've laid out some of the things going on in the world, some of the reasons that disinformation expounds. We may talk a little bit more about that, but I've got oh so much more to say, and I know you're going to want to come back to hear more of those thoughts. So until we get around to that tomorrow, I'd like to wish you all well, and we'll get back at it tomorrow.